Welcome to this special episode of The Switch. My name is Jake Burleski, Marketing Communication Associate at Nonprofit HR. I am so excited about today's episode, where we're going to hear from 3 women named to Nonprofit HR's 2024 Social Impact Women to Watch list. Each year during Women's History Month, Nonprofit HR is proud to recognize women across North America who have made significant contributions to nonprofits, associations, foundations, social enterprises, and the communities that they serve. This year, our Social Impact Women to Watch series features panel interviews with the 25 finalists named to this year's list. On today's episode, you will hear from Rita Mabli, Donna Murray-Brown, and Alicia Robinson. They will be interviewed by Lindsey Otto, Marketing Communication Specialist at Nonprofit HR. And now, a little bit about our guests. Rita Mabli recognized early in her career that when it comes to healthcare, a one-size approach does not fit all. She undertook the challenge of transforming United Hebrew from its modest beginnings to a one-of-a-kind campus of senior services, and has made it her mission to inspire her staff to bring out the best in themselves and others. Donna Murray-Brown is the inaugural Vice President of Strategy and Development of the National Council of Nonprofits. In her new role, Donna will lead the growth of NCN's core resources through practical and impactful strategic initiatives that integrate the knowledge, policy, and advocacy competencies and support the network in advancing those strategic initiatives. Alicia Robinson, the visionary force behind Limitless ambition, is a trailblazer in women's leadership development, dedicating her career to crafting impactful initiatives that resonate across K-12 and higher education spaces. As the founder and driving force of Limitless Ambition, Alicia has empowered over 6,000 young women through transformative teen enrichment programs. You're going to love this episode, and I welcome you to share it in your communities. You can find this recording at nonprofithr.com/The Switch. Without further ado, let's dive into the conversation.
Hi, thank you all so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm thrilled to be joined by 3 outstanding finalists from Nonprofit HR's 2024 Social Impact Women to Watch list. Each of you are making incredible waves in your organizations, and it's a privilege to host you for this panel discussion that we're about to have today. Before we jump into our conversation, I would love if each of you could briefly introduce yourselves to our listeners and share what it means to you to be named a Nonprofit HR Social Impact Women to Watch.
Hi, I'm Rita Mabli. I'm very proud to be President and CEO of United Hebrew of New Rochelle, which is in New York, and where seniors thrive every day. And I also want to send a shout out to my fellow distinguished honorees. I'm so humbled to be on this with you. And sometimes I'm so focused on leading the amazing team that we have here on a day-to-day basis that having external recognition, it's just a wonderful surprise and a great validation of the work that's done here by the people with whom I'm privileged to work every day. So go us.
Thank you, Rita. Absolutely. Go you. Who would like to hop in next?
I can go next. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alicia Robinson. I serve as the founder and executive director of Limitless Ambition, which is a nonprofit organization based in Northeast Ohio that empowers young women and teen girls through inner city school programming, as well as donating care packages to young girls in foster care and hosting women's empowerment events. I'm so excited to be achieving this honor. I'm very blessed to be on the call with such amazing women. When I first got the notification, I was like, wait, I'm not in human resources or HR. And then I realized, oh, okay, I do lead a team of people. And so I was very excited and overjoyed and just very happy to be here with everyone.
I am Donna Murray-Brown. I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Development with the National Council of Nonprofits. And I am equally delighted, as Alicia and Rita mentioned, to be named a Woman to Watch. It was just so humbling to be in community with so many women doing great things. And so I plan to stay connected with these women in some way to learn from them and to grow with them. Just really excited and really grateful to be able to have this opportunity to have a conversation, but also to be one of the women to watch, which is still something I'm grappling with. I'm an introvert, and so it's really hard for me to kind of wrap my mind around.
You know, I'd venture a guess the 3 of us that have been honored to do this podcast are all pretty much introverts, and it's kind of almost uncomfortable to be doing this. But I was once asked, how does it feel to be the only woman in the room? And my answer is, I was never the only woman in the room because there were too many people that came before me and too many women that helped me to get to where I am now, starting with my mom. So again, I say to you, go us.
Thank you, Rita, for that so much. Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation today. I want to first ask you all, what drew you to your organization's mission and to the social impact space in general?
I can start and say I was not originally drawn to the nonprofit sector, which I love and adore today. I was in the private sector for most of my career. And it was at a moment where I was in a room and as an advisory board member with a major nonprofit organization where I discovered that I really had a love for the work. And I think it was evident to other people. And they said, it's time for you to move over to the nonprofit sector. And I had a wonderful opportunity to become a member of a state infrastructure organization that serves nonprofits. And it was then that I realized that I want to be every single day helping other great people do good work across the country. And so I'm drawn to missions that are certainly helping people, but I like to help people help people. And so I'm right where I need to be. And it's just been an amazing journey to get here. I'm enjoying every day. Get to be with people like Alicia and Rita on a regular basis, which is wonderful.
We certainly resonate with that at Nonprofit HR. We also support all the social sector organizations, and we love doing it.
Well, like Donna and Alicia, I have always believed in the power of service for my entire life. I come from extremely humble beginnings. My mom and I were extraordinarily poor, but she always urged me to work hard, be smart, and most of all, be kind. And in an organization with mission-driven work, the idea of being kind and being smart and working hard are not mutually exclusive. And we feel here on the campus that kindness and vision go hand in hand when it comes to meeting the needs of any vulnerable population, whether it's children, single women trying to raise a family, people who work with nonprofit needs that others can't meet. You know, I've been here for 40 years, and it's always been a time that I could be passionate about advocating for older adults. We have so much to learn from them and so much that they've taught me. So I'm just very grateful to be where I am today, just so grateful. And I'm sure that there's a higher power out there that's guiding me every day.
So beautiful. Somewhat similar to Rita. I'm growing up, I experienced a lot of things and I observed a lot of things. And so I became really, really passionate about creating something for the next generation of young women leaders. It literally started out as like a passion project Instagram page that has now grown to this nonprofit organization that served over 6,000 women and girls in our community. And so I think that my heart to give back, I went through a purpose workshop many years ago, and they said that pain plus passion equals purpose. So our painful events that we go through in life plus what we're passionate about is our purpose and why we were placed here. And so for me, that is kind of like the core concept that I operate out of every single day. I didn't really choose the nonprofit sector. It chose me. And I just always have had the heart to really want to give back and to really want to help.
Well said. I love that, Alicia. Pain plus passion equals purpose. I resonate with that, and I'm sure many of our listeners will resonate with that as well. I want to talk about your organizations. I want to talk about your teams. What is each of your people management philosophies and engaging mission-driven talents in the respective work that you do?
You know, the staff here, the team here, and we have almost 400 employees on the campus. They came up with our mission statement. I did not draft the mission statement. The team here did. It's a very simple one. It simply says, we are kind people who care for you like family. And that doesn't mean we just care for our residents or our patients like family. It means that we treat each other like family. So the whole ethic of being kind to each other has resonated across the campus such that we have a very low turnover rate. People come here and seem to want to stay here. And in today's environment, when it's hard to find people who want to come and work in our sector, we have people that just don't want to leave us. It's more than just filling jobs. It's helping your team connect to your mission. And secondly, it's discussing the impact that you have as a staff member on the people for whom we care and on each other. So I think overall, there's just a larger purpose at play every day when we come in the door. My management philosophy has always revolved around those key principles. And I'd love to know what Donna and Alicia feel about this.
You know, it's interesting hearing you speak and then also hearing Alicia's profound statement around how you arrive at purpose and just, reflecting on both of those pieces and then thinking about my own leadership journey. It really is a philosophy that everyone has purpose and acknowledging that and the beautiful ability to bring the various lived experiences and talents talents and skills to bear and to really honestly and authentically bring those things to bear, because a lot of times people don't bring their full selves to work for various reasons. And I think the beauty is when people bring their full selves to work that you get so much. So I like to think of everyone having value and purpose. I believe that everyone leads in very different ways within the organization. And having the ability to facilitate that experience for folks within the organization is something that has proven to be very successful, not just for the organization, not just for me as a leader, but for the individual to be able to reach and attain things personally and professionally that otherwise they may not have. So I like to help people realize their purpose in a way that is respectful and impactful. That's what I look for, and that's what I like as well.
So beautifully said, and kind of segues right into like how I feel about it. I would say for me, I don't know how everyone feels about leadership assessments, and I know there's some pros and cons, but in Strength Finders, my number one strength is futuristic. So I'm always years ahead. I'm always casting a vision. I'm always looking to what's next, which is great in my career, not so great in personal life. You know, no one wants to be on a date and I'm like, are you going to marry me? You know, it doesn't go over that well when dating. But a career, you know, it's always been really good. And so for me, I think that one of my leadership philosophies is not only empowering my team to work together to create our vision for the future so they see themselves in the vision, but also really getting them to hone in on what their why is, what their personal why is. What is your passion grounded in? Is it from when you were little? A lot of us, we opened up talking about our why, because at the end of the day, when you know why you started and you continue to remind yourself, you'll never quit. You'll keep getting up, because you know there's somebody waiting for you, or you know there's something that's in you that's not in anyone else. And so throughout my leadership philosophy, I really try to hone in on that, as well as being okay with being wrong and apologizing for it and just acknowledging that. I think there's a lot of leaders who sometimes won't fall on the sword, so to speak. I've been privileged to have a lot of bad bosses. And so I'm just going to put it out there. And so throughout that, I've kind of built this toolkit of like, what can I do to help empower people to be their best selves and to really set their passion on fire so that they're walking in their purpose as well. So I think that I just try to govern with those spaces. And it looks differently. Sometimes it's, hey, take a day off. Hey, did you go get that spa pedicure that you wanted? You know, self-care is also very, very, very in my leadership philosophy, not only with my nonprofit, but with my full-time job as well. We take time off to go get our nails done, to go to therapy. Like, we value all of those things. You know, if you're not doing what you need to do to be your best self, you won't show up as such. And so I think that it's a complete balance.
Alicia, that is so well put. You want to recognize employee achievements, whether they're big or small. And I know that every day I like to show the team their value and show them how they inspire me to put my best foot forward. I look at their faces when they're caring for an 85-year-old woman, when I know that they have little children at home that they need to care for as well. And they come here and they just always give 100%. And that's why I say all the time, I am so privileged to work with the people that I do. They just show me every day what it's like to inspire kindness. And I'm privileged every day.
I think sometimes, in terms of sticking on this subject just a little bit longer, is that some people just don't have or have given themselves permission to indulge in self-care and all that. So I think part of my philosophy, and it just kind of resonated when you were talking about getting your nails done or, you know, getting what you need, is you doing that as a leader too. Because you as a leader modeling the way without saying a word, without saying anything, but doing those things is what people watch, giving them permission to take a vacation day. You wonder why people aren't taking these days off, but you look at yourself. Are you taking these days off? Are you taking care of yourself? And so that modeling the way is really, really important. And I've got some people that in recent years have said, gosh, you take vacations. I'm like, yeah, we all should, right? And so it's interesting. And I think having people, again, be their full selves at work is important, but we need to also model the way as part of our leadership philosophy.
Thank you for that addition, Donna. It's so evident to me how much you all care about your teams and your people and your culture. They're the key to the impact, to the mission. I love all that you shared. I'm taking notes here. I'm taking it all in. So I want to transition into our next question because I really want to talk about women in the workplace today. From all of your perspectives, what are some common barriers or obstacles that you all see women facing in the workplace when it comes to achieving empowerment, and how can we address those?
Well, I think women should be doing a couple of things. that maybe we're not so good at doing. And that's, we each need to find our voice and find our expertise and not shy away from expressing our ideas, even if there's a bunch of other people in the room that just dissent and they don't agree with you. Do it. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Back up your opinions. Build your network strategically. I've met 3 women today, and I would like to say they're going to teach me a lot if they stay in my network. So I'd like to surround myself with strong people, both men and women. I think what I've had to do in my career is build resilience. I've had to develop a thick skin. Wasn't always easy. We're supposed to be nice and soft and gentle, and I can be like that. But when you make a mistake, pick up your big girl panties and say, as Alicia said, I made a mistake. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to bounce back stronger. And I'm going to make sure resilience is a key quality in my effective leadership strategy. That's where I am with regard to this.
I think that was great, Rita. And I think on the flip side of things, when I think about barriers, one thing I didn't include in my intro is in my career, I actually was in the higher education space. I actually worked at women's centers for over a decade. So I worked at different universities doing gender equity work, women's leadership development work. And so I've actually created multiple presentations and gender bias, discrimination in the workplace workshops. And so when I think about barriers in the workplace to women that they have to face, I think of, pay equity. So we know that multiple studies show no matter where you're looking, no matter what sector, men make more on the dollar than women make. And then the disparities get even worse when you look at Black women and Latinx women. We know gender stereotyping is a barrier that women have to face. Lack of representation, right? So tons of research. You can look at board of directors room, executive C-suite rooms, even just who's in leadership in the corporate environment. When you look at the nonprofit sector, I found a really good report that showed that actually a lot of women and women of color are leading in the nonprofit sector, but they're not making much while leading type of deal. Microaggressions are something really big that, women face in the workplace. Like, oh, you changed your hair, let me touch it. Those types of things can definitely be very taxing. Double standards, maternal status as well. When I give my corporate trainings, I go, when a kid is sick at school, who do they call? And everybody always goes, mom. So, those types of things as well are all things that women have to balance as they're navigating different dynamics in the workplace, as they're climbing the career ladder. And it can be very hard to overcome and to navigate and to get through. And Rita was spot on, though. There is that imposter syndrome. There is that, you do have to think about for yourself, what is the support that you need and how can you increase your network and get into leadership development programs and that type of thing. But there definitely are a lot of obstacles in the workplace. One that I faced personally was actually ageism. We don't talk about ageism enough in these types of dialogues in these type of settings. If nobody could tell, I've been very driven since I was 15. And so throughout my whole career, I've always been the youngest in a space by 10, 15, and 20 years. And when I worked at the university, I was only a couple years older than my students, but 15 to 20 years younger than my boss. And so you also get in that dynamic of my students not respecting me, my boss talking to me like I'm their child. And so ageism is definitely something that I faced heavily throughout my whole career and still do. I was in a meeting the other day and somebody called me young. I have nice skin, all right? I'm not even that young anymore. So I think that ageism is definitely something as well as a barrier that women have to face. I started to ramble. I get passionate.
Oh, absolutely. It's all true, right? Those are all real things. I would say underscore everything that Rita and Alicia said. The only thing I would add in my experience is the co-opting of my ideas. Hearing something I said and then it's said right after by most times someone who's not a woman who's sharing what I just said in a room. And that was something that had been part of my journey, not only in the nonprofit sector, in the private sector as well. And now I'm a little bit better at managing that because it used to hurt my feelings. I just said that. Did you not hear me? Honestly, sometimes that was invisible. And that's a barrier sometimes because you feel like you're invisible, but you're physically in a room. And I think what I've been able to do to kind of navigate through that is to take that as flattery as opposed to co-opting. Take it as flattery and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that we're in alignment with the thinking, as I just mentioned earlier. That's exactly what I was talking about. And that seems to work. Taking some things that historically have been negative things, or we perceive them to be negative, and flipping them on its head and saying, it's flattery that someone just said something that you just said. Embrace that and lean into that. And that's been able to help me mentally be able to get through a lot of times when that happens, because it hurts when it does.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm also experiencing as a woman, we have to be savvy about the way that we do things. And there's a lot of things that we're kind of faced with that we have to grapple with and we sort of have to work around. And I love everything that you all shared. And it's honestly really encouraging to hear all those things from you, being as successful as you are and the way that you've navigated them. It's very inspiring to me. I want to talk a little bit more about, are there any examples or initiatives or strategies that have been successful in promoting that gender equality and empowering women in your organization? Is there anything that you all have employed?
We have 8 lines of business on our 7.5-acre campus. And purely by happenstance and ability, the leaders of many of those lines of business happen to be women. Not because I was going out of my way to choose a woman to run that line of business, but because those were the most qualified people for that position. And I have found that the males that we work with in leadership position on the campus have nothing but respect for other people. I am so blessed to have senior leadership be a wonderful mix of people that truly get along with each other, truly respect each other. So I don't know why it generated that kind of feeling with each other, but I'm just so proud and happy that that's where I am at this point in my career, that I have people with whom I can interact every day and just feel very comfortable and very much like they are here for the long haul. They are here to give their best. And that's where we are on this campus. I don't know if it's an anomaly or not, but it's where we are.
Awesome. I think to add to that, some things that have been successful, not only within my organization, but organizations that I worked at previously, unconscious gender bias trainings, conducting organizational assessments to see the diversity in leadership roles, examining hiring practices and maternal leave policies is a huge one. Conducting a salary audit is also really big. And then kind of like what we touched on earlier, so providing that flexible work schedule. And Rita was touching on this a little bit earlier, but I've had the opportunity to lead a lot of different initiatives that empowered women employees. When I worked at Kent State University, I launched the first ever Black woman employee resource group. It was all for Black women who worked on campus. It was a place that provided healing and support and empowerment and network of like-minded individuals. Also mentorship programs, I've developed those, whether it be for employees or even for students. That's also very, very helpful to women as they're climbing their leadership ladder. So those are some things that definitely have worked and that do work.
I really appreciate both of you. We can say, I think we're grateful to have leaders like you in the field, nonprofit field that is. What's interesting is that it's like 74% of the staff are women, but not all of them are leaders, right? And so for me, which has been interesting working in that social sector infrastructure space, there are mainly men. It's just now beginning to have women as leaders in these infrastructure spaces, which is extremely interesting. I've been observing and being a part of it at the same time. Even within my own organization, I am a senior leader within the organization, and there are other women as well. But throughout my career, it's usually been, if I am the top leader of the organization, it's the first time that this has happened. And the other women leaders within the organization are really expecting something, like, what's going to happen now? And what they've shared with me that I've been able to deliver in those spaces is to make sure that when we're in discussions, that I'm bringing their voice in the fold by calling on them and asking and inviting them to speak, which often doesn't happen. A lot of times you have to jump in when you can. And it really should be where we're having a conversation. So you invite people. Like, that's super practical, but it is something that is extremely helpful. The other thing is being their sponsor. And so mentoring is great. I think that's important. And we may even touch on that in our conversation. I think mentoring is so important. But what I'm talking about is sponsorship, which is different. Some of these women, they are either typecast in a role and they want to do something greater. And people feel like they only can do this. And you know they can do more. So being able to speak on their behalf when they're not in the room is probably the most important thing women leaders can do for other women within their organization, is to be there for them and advocate for them when they can't necessarily do that for themselves because they're not physically in the space, or they are in the space and inviting their voice into the room. You will find me doing that routinely, almost as if I'm on a mission to do that. And perhaps I am, because there were many times throughout my career that I was not invited to speak and I had ideas. And then what happened was I started keeping those ideas to myself, and I wasn't bringing my full self to spaces. And I just observed that. And I thought that was a disservice to any organization that I was affiliated with. And that's when I began to work on me to be able to help others to be able to bring their voice into the room.
What's evident here is that the three of us who have been interviewed have never once stepped on each other's time or focus or what we were saying, but instead we were appreciative of what we each had to say and we've built on it. So maybe that's part of how we've built our network strategically. Before we even got on this call, we knew we were going to do that because that's how we built our careers. I am so happy to have met the three of you, and I'm appreciative of everything that you've said.
Yeah, I am as well. I'm just sitting here processing it all. I think this goes very well into sort of my next question, which is how can leaders such as yourselves create supportive and inclusive environments that encourage women at every level, right? Leadership and entry-level employees to voice their ideas, to contribute their talents, to pursue those leadership opportunities. Nonprofit HR, we survey the social sector every year around their talent management practices, and we find year over year that women are the hardest to retain. And so we really believe a holistic approach is really important. It's not just compensation, it's around the environment and it's around that culture. And so I really want to hear from you all about how to create that as leaders.
Something I learned from nonprofit HR, I've used this particularly when I was the top leader of the organization, meaning from a hierarchical perspective. But one of the things that you shared was the state interview. Let me just say the power of talking to people while they're still there and understanding why they still want to be there is incredibly useful. In those state interviews, you can find out people's hopes and dreams. And guess what? A lot of times they're not necessarily in the role that you have them in. They aspire to do different things. Sometimes they aspire to do those things within your organization. And also, if they decide that they want to leave your organization, for me, it is so flattering that they want to go and stay in the nonprofit sector. So if there's not something for them within the organization, I'm not keeping them just to keep them. I'm helping them to be where they want to be. And when you're in constant communication through those state interviews as a tool, if you want to use those, and I think they're just amazing, you're able to keep people within your organization or develop them and have them bloom and be able to reach their goals and their dreams.
Do you have anything else to add there, Rita?
No, I think Donna and I'm sure Alicia reflect a lot of the same things that I feel, which is I love being a mentor and offering guidance and support, but even more so, and I think both of these wonderful women said this already, I like being a sponsor. I like advocating advancement for others, and not only in my organization, but in my field. And that's purely a privilege. Among many privileges, that's probably the top of my field.
Thank you for that. Well said. And so when these instances come up for unconscious bias and gender discrimination in the workplace, I want to know, how do you all address it? What are steps that individuals and organizations can kind of take to promote greater awareness and inclusivity? Alicia, do you want to chime in on that one first?
Yeah, I can start. I think that Donna did it perfectly earlier, but she was like, oh, but that's so flattering. I said that earlier. So I think that I always say the number one thing when it comes to unconscious bias or gender discrimination is like combating the microaggression or like setting the boundary or saying something. But even saying that, I say that from a very privileged seat, right? So I've been in my career now for a few years. I hold multiple leadership roles. I have a beautiful network of sponsors, trailblazers, supporters. So I'm able to just say something. But I recognize that like for many women, that is not their story. For many women, they could say something and retaliation could be a fear. They could say something and it could, ruffle some feathers. They're afraid about losing their job. And so I always say, if you have the opportunity or you can place that boundary or say something and acknowledge it. I have been coming across a lot of women in their careers lately who don't feel comfortable speaking up, but they are at a place where they're about to leave the organization. So I always say, if you're in an environment where you don't feel empowered enough to speak of how you feel or what's happening, definitely leave that exit survey. Okay. Definitely write that long email, put the CEO, CFO, executive director, head of HR, put everybody and their mom on that email. Like, leave loudly. Leave very, very loudly. And then a lot of people are like, well, I don't know. But I always say, like, think about the women who are coming behind you. So it's more so about letting it be known when you leave so that, it's documented, people are aware. Also, take things to HR. HR is supposed to be a neutral space. So your human resources department is a good place if you're facing some issues, your supervisor, if they're a trusted source. And then ultimately, if it's a toxic environment, it's a toxic environment. Sometimes you're too great for that space. And it is also very important to realize when maybe it's just time for you to go and maybe you need to go find a corporation, an organization that fits more in line with your ideals and your values. That's also a thing. I think sometimes we stay too long. And sometimes there's structures in place that unfortunately you can't shift to the magnitude they need to be shifted. And it's not worth risking your peace, your mental health, your well-being, any of those things.
Thank you so much. Donna, I saw you shaking your head. Is there anything you want to add?
Everything resonated with me. And I will say, too, about the woman that you were describing that was ready to leave, and you said leave loudly. Would it have been wonderful if the organization just would have, while she's been there, talked to her about those things? And the stay interview does that. It's a mitigator in some cases. The other piece of it, too, I think women wanting to leave an organization is a big decision. It's almost like any relationship that a woman leaves. It's like a big decision. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think we need to kind of lean into that being how, generally speaking, we're wired. And so this notion of being able to communicate. One of the things, too, about communication is like a lot of our meetings and things that we have don't really start with a personal thing. Like, what is your personal or professional best? Have people engage in the space before they get down to the brass tacks of the work that needs to be done. Get to know them as a human being. And we often don't take the time, to do that. And I also think another issue, too, is about a lot of women, particularly women of color, too, are coming into the workspace, and while they are not being paid what they're worth, most women, they're also making more than their partner might be making. And we need to think about what that means. So they're making decisions strategically for their lives, and they want to be there, but they also deserve to be in a workplace that honors them. And so one of the ways that we do that, I think we're doing it well. I think we always have room for improvement, is hiring into our values. So while we have values and we put them on our website and we put them everywhere, they're words. But living out the values means that you hire to your values, and you also terminate on your values, right? When they're not being met. And so I think at the onset, you're bringing people into the fold, not hoping that they get aligned with your mission and vision and values, but you're hiring to that. It's a longer process in hiring, but it's worth it in the end that people actually subscribe to understanding and commitment to your values. And these days, most have some form of diversity, equity, inclusion in their values embedded in some way, whether it looks like respect or whatever it is. And you just need to have conversations prior to hiring them. That's part of the process. It actually is very helpful.
Absolutely. Those core values are so important to deploy and kind of pull through that entire talent management life cycle. And it really helps build that culture. I love everything that you shared there. Sort of to round out our conversation today, I just have one last question. In talking about the employee life cycle and, your team and your employees and investing in them, can you discuss the importance of providing access to training, development, networking opportunities, and specifically tailored to women on your team and the aspirations of women in the workforce?
I think investing in staff development with training and conferences and mentorship opportunities, and doing it on a schedule that allows the people that work for you, which in my case are predominantly women, allowing them to be able to take advantage of that by understanding what their life cycle might be like, is integral to the success of being able to grow as an organization. The right people in the right job, empowering people to learn new skills and have the credentials and the recognitions that go along with that allow them to stay, or as both of you said, move on to a better place. That's part of being an effective leader, an effective manager, an effective cohort, an effective mentor and support person. That will make your organization physically be very, very successful, because you won't have a lot of turnover if you keep those core people that are so good from leaving, by encouraging them, by recognizing them, by allowing them to grow and have purpose.
Anyone else want to hop in on that one?
I have some thoughts on everything we've been talking about, right? The one thing I would add, because Rita hit it at every point, it's very isolating, or can be very isolating, being a woman leader, because there are unique things that you experience as a woman leader that is different from our counterparts. And so because of the isolation, making certain that you provide a way for networking with other women is utterly important, to take away that isolation so people can understand that there are others that are similar to them that are going through things. And that creates a sense of community that people can tap into and adds to strength, right? So I think that is important. Another thing that is important, I hope this isn't ruffling anybody's feathers that's listening, but the idea of you having professional development budget and not spending it is not a good thing. So if you have the money there and it's not spent to zero, or even someone saying, I know money's gone, but I still want to use some more, that's a better thing. And so we shouldn't be thinking about we're saving money by not exhausting our professional development expense. I really have met some leaders who say, I can't get anybody to take their professional development dollars. And then I wonder, are you speaking and talking to them on a regular basis about the things that are important to them? Or are there areas of development because you're having these candid, courageous conversations about things that can advance their work? So I think that my posture for people that are part of my team who have teams, to be able to hold them also accountable to make sure that people are actually engaging in professional development, because it's that important to me. I just say, spend the money. I mean, that's the headline. Spend the money. It's important. People deserve it. And that's an investment that continues to keep growing and growing and growing.
I think everybody said everything really beautifully. The only thing that I would add is to encourage folks to look at the professional development dollars differently. Maybe think a little bit outside the box, right? Especially if you have a budget. What has really helped propel me tremendously forward in my career is like these community leadership programs. So we have one called Torchbearers out here in Akron. We have one called Leadership Akron, where it's like a citywide leadership program where you're with a group of folks, cross-sector, different industries, all leaders in their organizations or even emerging leaders. And those programs propelled me so much further because it caused me to start looking at my own issues within my organizations and within my industry differently, because I now was with different people that I would have never met, would have never known, all these CPAs and all these lawyers, everything like that. Not to mention, since I do have a nonprofit as well, just expanding my network, more donors, board members, that type of thing. So I think also, I always like to tell emerging leaders, like, look in your community for those type of citywide, countywide leadership development programs that also bring you in the light with people that you wouldn't rub elbows with. I think that's very important. Even like fellowships. I'm in the process of applying for an 18-month fellowship that's at Harvard, but like, you don't have to go there all the time. Just thinking, I'm like, I may not get in, but I'm going to apply anyway. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I get a no. So just really thinking outside the box. And even if it's a lot, ask anyway. To go on Donna's point, like, ask. The worst they could say is no. So just thinking about that.
I'm excited. I can say I knew Alicia before she went to Harvard. There you go.
I love that. I love how this conversation, how your answers, sort of reflected what organizations can do, the importance of it in an organization, but also looking outside of your organization, as anyone who wants to grow and learn outside of what may be immediately available in their organization, to think outside the box in order to do the things that they want to do. I love that. So Donna, Rita, Alicia, it's been so wonderful to hear your perspectives today. As we draw our conversation to a close, I just want to spend a few moments. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I wanted to share that one of the things that I know that we weren't able to touch upon, but I do want people to know that in the nonprofit sector, nonprofit burnout of employees is absolutely real. And in the spirit of thinking outside of the box, I hope that we can consider rest as liberation in the workforce, particularly for women, and also thinking out of the box around how we can leverage things that have been done in higher ed, like sabbaticals, and other ways for people to get the rest and the refreshment and rejuvenation that they need to be able to do the work.
Well said. Rita, Alicia, anything?
I think the only thing that I would add, so if you're in a space and you want to move up and you can't move up, move out. So I think it's important, especially as emerging leaders, as women of color, as you're climbing the ladder, if that opportunity is not there and you know it's not there and you have that desire and passion on your heart, move out and move along. And it can't be scary. And it can be a big leap. And it's not easy at all. Continue to, diversify your mentors, your sponsors, your network. Like, it's not about who you know or what you know. It's about who knows you. Continue in that space and really believe in yourself and just take that leap.
And to dovetail right on the back of that, put your toe in the water and get out of that comfort zone. You don't have to stay someplace where you're not appreciated.
Oh man, you three, learning about your work and lifting you all up as 2024 Social Impact Women to Watch has been a great honor for Nonprofit HR, and it's been just a great honor for me to host this panel with you all. I'm certain our listeners will walk away as inspired and empowered as I am. So thank you all so much for your time today.
That's our show for today. I really love the conversation around leadership and talent management and hearing each of the unique perspectives. There were so many amazing insights taken away from this conversation that I think can apply to any organization. We thank you for listening to The Switch. And if you're looking for more episodes, visit nonprofithr.com/The Switch. There you can access recordings and resources to help your organization maximize its greatest asset, your people.